This is a Hot Pie Original.
Hi, and welcome to the Amy Edwards Show. I'm your host, Amy Edwards, and today we're going to talk to Marina Pirkle. She is a clinical hypnotherapist, a healer. She is also a grief recovery specialist and a coach, and she helps alchemize grief. And it is powerful, so powerful, you know? And I feel like putting out something directed at grief can bring up a few resistances in us, like, oh, I don't need that right now. But it's so useful. And then to be able to go ahead and have those tools, even when we think we don't need them, is really, really important, because then you have something to turn to, maybe even when you're actually in it, because it sneaks up on all of us. We don't expect grief, you know? So anyway, I'm so excited to bring this episode today and all her wisdom and knowledge, because she experienced it all firsthand in a really, really deep and hard way. So stoked to bring that story to you today. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to talk to you first and a couple business things. If you are a regular listener, or even if you're not, if you could please rate and review, mainly rate. If you could hit the 5 stars and rate the podcast, that would be so helpful. In the podcasting world, that is a real thing that makes a difference. So if these mean something to you, I would be so, so grateful. And if you want to take it even further and write a review, that's fucking awesome. So thank you for that. Also, don't forget to sign up for my newsletter. It's at amyedwards.com. Super easy, just right there on the website. And then I will let you know about these episodes each week as they come out. Also with something that's on my mind, and just go a little bit deeper on whatever it is that we're talking about that week. So, and also if I have free content too, you'll get all my free content, which already there's I know I've got a meditation on there. I've got some worksheets on there and just a few different things. So anyway, let's get on to today's episode. So happy that you're here. Okay, so today we are going to talk with Marina about grief and alchemizing it and understanding it a little bit more and letting ourselves know that it's all okay. There's no right or wrong. And I'm stoked about that. And one of the things that she brings up a lot is getting out of your head and into your heart, and allowing all those emotions and not getting caught up in these bargaining or depression or ruminations that we can so get caught up in, especially with grief or with anything in our lives. And I thought this was already on my mind, but as we talked about it, I asked her about it. And I feel like we can develop holding back in our hearts and resistances to loving fully if we experience grief, or if we experience getting hurt in a really hard or deep way, and we want to just close off and shut down, even if it's a divorce. And we talk a little bit about grieving other things besides actual death. We, have times where we can grieve an old way of being, grieve perhaps, maybe transitions into new ways of life, like maybe your kids graduated high school and you have an empty nest or something like that. I think that there's all different types of grieving where you miss that old, but you have to move forward into a new way of being. And how do we do that? And I got to thinking about it with love just in my own life. As many of you know, I'm in a relationship now, and that is pushing me in a new way. And I've been doing a lot of self-work. If you follow me at all, I've been on this self-love journey. And I have noticed that in this relationship, it is demanding of me, asking of me to love as openly and bigly, as fully as possible. And I'm recognizing that I want to hold myself back. And I have some resistance towards it. And not only in my relationship, but in life in general. And I've noticed it in relationships and just being that open. And there's something so vulnerable about it. And so it's scary. There's a fear. And I don't even really understand what the fear is. Am I afraid of getting hurt? Am I afraid of looking stupid? Am I afraid of feeling all the way that I'm unprotected in some way? Maybe. We probably all have different reasons for those resistances, and different reasons in different ways of loving. So in my relationship, I've noticed it, and I am being called to really fully open up. And we can have these underlying, I guess they're resistances, underlying stresses and underlying old reasons, and old habits and ways of being that are just there. Maybe not even aware. We're not even that aware of them. And they can affect how we love, affect our openness, affect our heart being open. And I want to be the person with my heart open. Like I really, truly do. But I notice even with other women in friendships or just meeting them, I can have resistances to loving them fully. There's one person I'm thinking of in particular. I'm sure she would have absolutely no fucking clue that I would think this. And I have like a total resistance to her in particular. And even when her name comes up, I'm like, and I don't want to be that person. And why? There's no reason except, maybe she was interested in someone, in my partner or something like that. And so I'm more guarded and more cautious. And I noticed this weekend, I was around some women who were very, very loving and very, very open. And I could tell like I hold back. I don't know what I'm scared of, but something about that makes me nervous. And I'm sure I've got some work to do. So I'll let you know. Sign up for my newsletter. I'm sure I'll go further on that. And I'll get maybe more to the root of it. But there's something there. I know that. And I recognized it in the moment. And I'm like, why can I not just open up here? And I think that I get scared that they're not going to like me as much as they like other people, so there's that, it's comparison. I think a lot of it there, we probably just got to a big piece of it because I'm a comparer or a recovering comparer. I'm in comparison recovery. So, I noticed that. And the very next day, I had been offered a breathwork session with John Barry, Barry. He's at Real John Barry on Instagram. And I've known him since October, and I knew that he did this breath work, and he's extremely gifted. I went in not really knowing. I went in kind of resistant to breath work, and he came to me during the breath work, and you go pretty deep, kind of like what Marina's talking about. Like it's breathing, but it's also like a really focused, guided meditation at the same time. And he does a lot of energy work with it too, which gets into sounding woo-woo, but why not give it a shot, right? So I just fully surrendered to it. And when he came over to me, he talked about women, and he talked about other women in my life. He talked about comparison or competition. And I've always been able to sense that too, when other women feel that towards me. And so I know that I'm putting it out in certain instances, and I need to be more aware of that. And so something about the work he did and me just surrendering to the moment, I didn't even really know what was going on. I just tried to do what I was told and be in the moment and breathe. And something about it just felt like it was lifting. And not only toward women, but in my relationship too. And I got to say, something about doing this breath work, not only like released whatever old stuff I'd been holding on to, I felt lighter afterward, but it released a sexual energy too, which is a total trip. And I had a feeling there was something like that in me that needed to be released. And you know what? When we have those feelings, we're right. Just pay attention to them. They're there. Like so many times we're like, nah, I'm just dreaming that. No, perhaps it's actually there. It is actually there. And I feel like those resistances just got cleared all the way, actually. And I feel like sexually, I'm more open just in the last few days of this. And also, just recognizing where I have those love resistances in my heart, or I want to close off a little bit. Like, where can we pay attention to that? Where can we breathe through it? And where can we find ways to release and open up? I'm a big fan of Michael Singer, who wrote Untethered Soul, Surrender Experiment. He's got some cool stuff on Audible too. He has Untethered Soul at Work, which is really, really good. And he's funny. He's really funny, kind of a down-to-earth guy. But he talks a lot about just that constant work of opening our heart. When are we closing it up? Those are the moments we have to slip back into that practice of opening it back up. And, those times that I can feel myself a little bit scared to completely let go and love all the way. So you're probably like, well, do I have to go schedule breath work or something? That's not what I'm telling you to do, even though it's a good tactic. So I want to give you something tangible that you can do that's really, really easy. And it's that big old paradox, of course, that we can open to love more freely when we feel secure with our own love. So it's returning to that self-love. Do you have a practice around that? You probably do, or you want to. Are you looking in the mirror and saying, I love you, blank, insert name here. I love you, Amy, which is weird. I made my daughter do it the other day. I made her say, I love you, Gigi, while looking in the mirror. And she was like totally weirded out by the whole thing. But I'm like, you know what? I'm going to teach her this because it's useful. But the one thing that I want to suggest today that's a really tangible way of doing it is falling asleep. I started doing this during the pandemic and I kind of lost it a little bit, probably because I am sharing a bed with someone now. And so, I think that some of your regular practices, like we've talked about, the habits, I think I talked about it maybe 2 episodes ago about the one with Ella, where I talked about staying conscious of your own habits and whose habits am I living right now. So I've kind of lost track of this habit and I've rekindled it in the last few days. And that is when I fall, or last week or so, when I fall asleep, so many times we can just beat ourselves up with ruminations or whatever, or missing someone if we've lost a loved one, whatever it is, or money problems, whatever it is. Can we push all those aside? And can we just do the self-love thing when we fall asleep? And that's what I've been doing and the practice that I've returned to. So when I fall asleep, I just repeat, I love you, Amy, over and over in my head, which sounds a little kooky, right? But there's no rule that says we have to think through our entire day and call up old bullshit from 5 years ago where we did something shameful or stupid, right? So there's no rule that says we have to do that before we fall asleep, and yet we do. So I was like, how about I shift that? And so during the pandemic, and it really, really helps me fall asleep. It helps me a ton. Just, I don't know, just feel love and loved. And it helps us with the practice of keeping our hearts open just to ourselves. And once we can get there with ourselves, we can get there in daily practice and get there more with others when life is pushing us in that direction, as it is in my relationship. I'm recognizing if I'm going to really do this, then I better open up and do it, which is scary as fuck. But I fell asleep last night. You can breathe into it too. Add your own breath work, because breath work, that's so cool that those are things that we can do to ourselves whenever we want, so falling asleep is a perfect time for it. Can you just tune into your breath and just repeat, I love you, insert your name here. I think you can. And so I hope that message of love resonates with you. I'd love to hear what your practices are. If you have a quirky practice like my falling asleep one, I wish you'd tell me. I would absolutely love to know. Send me an email. You can reach me anytime at Amy at amyedwards.com. Just one Amy. I don't know why I said it twice. Amy at amyedwards.com. So now we're going to jump into today's episode. Marina Pirkle is such a beautiful, amazing soul. And she went through a very dark night when she lost her sister, who she had raised and actually become the legal guardian of for years. And her sister died tragically in a car accident about a year ago. And Marina's been through some serious grief. And she already had all these practices. So she was like, why can't I deal with this? And she learned a lot. And so hopefully we can learn from her today. I know I did a lot because I've had my own grief. That, the grief just crops up when we don't expect it. I didn't even cry with her today. And yet, I'm teary right now just thinking about my friend Yates, my drummer, and really close friend who died suddenly in December. And, it just pops up when we don't expect it. And I really didn't expect that right now, but it's a real thing. And so how are we dealing with it when it crops up when we don't expect it? And how can we alchemize it? How can we trust and understand that it's part of our path, when we do not fucking understand? So anyway, we're going to talk to Marina. I'm really excited to bring this to you today. It's really powerful. And she offers up you to email her anytime you want. And she has grief hypnotherapy sessions recorded. And you can tell her where you are in the grief process, and she will send you something tailored just to you. How badass is that? Yes, email her. You can go to her website, which is modernmindalchemy.com. And I think you can email her through there, or you can go to marinarenepirkle@gmail.com. So we will put links. There's links wherever you're watching this. We're going to have links to all that. And also you can find her on Instagram. She has a lovely Instagram. It's at Modern Day Magic Woman on Instagram. So let's start with Marina now. And I'm just so excited that you're here. And, we're all just here to get better, right? So how can we do that even through the dark times? Okay.
I like this fuzzies.
You like my fuzzy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty.
I like texture.
Yeah, I know.
Thank you.
It's cool on camera too.
Yeah, it was, it's a whole nother thing when you have the cameras on you, like you were saying with our makeup and everything. It's like,
got to put little hair extensions in too.
I did today. Yeah. You did too?
Yeah, I did too.
Your hair looks really good.
Yeah, you just clip a few in, right? My boyfriend has them on in a video. He does this Billy, this patriot, and he puts it in so it looks like a mullet.
That's awesome.
I'll have to send it to you. It's really good. It's really funny.
I should get Justin too and see. Not that he needs them, but that's awesome. Yeah, thank you. I usually start to I light a little Palo Santo and just set our intention. Yeah. And I'm just really glad you wanted to talk about when you brought up grief. I mean, it's something that we all deal with, whether we like it or not. Yeah. And even if we're grieving old situations, I was kind of thinking about,
Yeah, grief is, marriage, loss of a job. Grief is so many things, not just death. Obviously, we go right to death, but
I know we do.
We need a grief process with a lot of things.
Oh, I feel like I had to with my divorce, and there's divorces, I should say. So here you go. I know. Breathe in and breathe out. Just light a little Palo Santo. Do you want to?
Yeah.
It's
the best smell ever, isn't it?
It really is. I know. Colton said that he smelled it somewhere the other day and he was like, what is that? And then he knew.
Thank you.
It is. And I just feel like our intention is just to bring light to this and maybe give someone a few more tools to deal with grief. And I'm really, really interested in your processes around it. So I thought maybe we could start to by you just talking about, how you've had to open up to grief in your own life with your sister, Jenny, who passed tragically last year.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I've been doing this work for a few years and, hypnotherapy and coaching and helping and major life transitions. And I thought I had an idea of how to really help with grief and found it effective and in all these ways and great response back. But when I went through this loss with my sister, she was my, soul's purpose. I like to call her, she was half of my heart. So I raised her from a very young age. So she was daughter, sister, everything.
Because what's y'all's age difference?
It was 10 years. Yeah. So I got custody of her when I was 21. And so, we just we overcame a really hard life situation. We, had a lot going on. My mom was an addict and drugs, abuse and everything. And so my goal was to give her, everything that I never had growing up. And so that's what gave me drive and purpose and made me work my ass off and be not a drug addict or you know what I mean? It was like, I focused on her and she was just this little angel, like a light, like,
yeah.
But, and that was our story together. And a lot of people looked up to that too, when we kind of got out of this town and became successful, both of us.
It's an amazing story.
Yeah. And, you know, so last year, it was March 8th, you know, we were planning on her coming down to Texas from Washington and finally to have her down here. And she was thinking about moving. And I was so excited for us to be, reunited and to like live together and to just do life again together. You know, it'd been years. And it was, you know, we have our knowing, right? When we have that connection to someone, when something isn't right, you know, we there's part of us that knows. And I mean, you have kids. And so it's like that connection, like we feel something. Well, she had gone out, you know, with her friends and she was, you know, party the night before. And I kept saying like, be safe, you know, be safe. You know, here's my Uber account, like just take a car, you know, whatever you need, be safe. And I just said, dance like I was there with you. I love you unconditionally. And she's like, I love you so much. That was the last text message that we sent to one another.
Did y'all talk every day?
For the last month before she passed, we did, which was quite interesting that our souls connected on such a deeper level the last month that she was alive. Well, in the morning, you know, I woke up and everything felt very kind of lucid to me, very surreal for some reason. I was going about my day. I went to a farmer's market, but I was waiting for her to call. And then it was like 11 and it was noon. And I see my cousin pop up, my cousin Timmy, who she was living with at the time. And I answered it and I said, where is she? You know, I knew right away, where is she? I thought she was at the hospital. My mind just went there. And he just said, she didn't make it. And I mean, like, I was like, what? You know what? And I was driving at the time. And the thing is that was like so amazing and curious about this is like, I heard my heart shatter. Like I heard it. It was like someone had thrown like a box of china downstairs. And I just, you know, I couldn't even believe that my heart was still beating. It was the wildest feeling. I mean, I would never wish this on anybody, the worst person in the world, this kind of pain. But I remember pulling over and I just got out of the car and I just was screaming no to like the universe. I was in such shock, such denial. Like I even ripped the windshield wipers off my car. I mean, I had this super strength. I mean, we know we're like mama bears, right? It's like we will do anything to protect. But the hardest part is we can't protect them against themselves. And so the one time she was driving drunk, you know, 60 miles an hour into the pole, died instantly, flew out the windshield, died instantly, 30
she
feet.
Didn't have her seatbelt on.
No. And she knew better. I taught her how to drive, you know? So this was an interesting time in my life because I was at the peak in my career, like, you know, full practice, hypnotherapy. I just done that podcast with you and it sent me
which was amazing.
It sent me so many amazing clients. And I felt like an all-time high, you know, I really was. I was living on this beautiful ranch in Austin and, you know, everything was magical and I just couldn't wait to share that with her. I was doing it all to share that with her. I mean, she was my purpose. So that was my breaking. And, you know, psychologically, you know, the shock, the denial, all these things. Well, I really went on my own kind of journey there. You know, I work a lot in the spirit realm. We've talked about that. And I thought, you know, part of the shock, whatever, all the things together, I was like, well, maybe I can meet her in that halfway place. It's been 4 days. You know, I think that I can find her basically in the ethers and I could bring her home at least. And so.
Well, I've heard that there's like a time period when someone dies of this like interim. Yeah. Which how do we know for sure? But that's what I've heard.
Yeah. Well, and I felt that. And there was such a pull, you know, to the other side for me. And I've never considered suicide before in my life. I've always been, you know, not in that realm. I just haven't, no matter how hard life has gotten. But this was an interesting thing because it was like I was being pulled. It was like my soul was being pulled to be with her. And so I was like, well, maybe I can meet her there. Maybe if I, you know, take a combination of things, whatever. I did a cocktail of things to basically thought I can kind of.
Which was what? What was your cocktail?
Oh, I did, you know, it was mushrooms, Adderall, wine, and I was a pretty clear vessel.
That's all over the map.
It's all over the map, right?
I'm not sure which direction I go.
Yeah. Which, you know, I like to keep my channel very clear. And so But for me, I was like, maybe if I do this, this kind of combination, it's desperation. It was pure desperation.
I remember you at that time, and like, I was worried about you because you were just, it was like you just had a break.
Yeah, I did. And so, it's not.
Which is common if someone experiences that devastating loss.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I have not, thank God, not to that degree.
But that's where that's when you're in such shock. And that's where we really need to show up for people when they're in that place. And there's proper ways to do it and proper ways not to, I think. And but yeah, so I did that. And then it led me on a journey where basically I deeply worried my family. They had to geo-track me, and find me. And I was non-responsive. The ambulance, had to come. I was non-responsive out near Fredericksburg, out in the middle of nowhere, Texas. And it was wild. And I do feel that I died for, I was doing it over. I was taking as much as I could of whatever.
What was your experience then when you were in that state?
Well, I was lying on a park bench in a very beautiful place. And I remember, and I wrote this note basically, and this note said, and I'm always a very extra person, I guess. Right. So I'm wearing like,
you are a little extra, and I like that about you.
Well, I'm like,
speaks to me.
Yeah.
Speaks to me.
Yeah. We're sisters from another life, many lifetimes, I think. But, I was like, well, I'm completely at peace with going. I'm completely at peace with death. If I go at this point, great. If not, if I come back, that's great too. So, but I was wearing like this red Michael Kors dress, a big black hat, and I know that I know my family's out, have people looking for me. So I'm kind of I thought that a big black hat would be incognito. Right. Well,
the red dress. Though.
Yeah. Didn't really work. Anyways. So I wrote this note and it said, this is my attempt, my sister, she was my soul's purpose. And I want to find her. And if I can find her, if I can meet her in this halfway place and the other realm and walk her home, be there with her, felt that she needed me, then that's great. And if I stay with her, that's wonderful, and if I come back, then that's great too. But I'm totally at peace either way. Please don't be sad about this if I don't come back, because that means I've succeeded. Yeah. That was my way of speaking about it. So basically I was just ready, at that moment I didn't have any kind of fear. I just it was the desperation. And I think that now looking back at that, a lot of people get there, in this shock, and you really do have this pull to the other side, which is something that I don't think is talked about very much, that I felt like my soul was halfway here and halfway with her. And so it's a confusing place to be
and then you chose an extreme path to try to reconnect or connect or go to where you were pulled. In hindsight, do you think like hypnotherapy and some other ways are totally effective? Because I'm wondering about like meditation and just getting in that, deep trance-like state of connection. Yeah. Which I've experienced, or using psychedelics,
totally.
Maybe.
Yeah. And now, I do a lot of work with that. In my practice. And I do a lot of conversations to the other side and last conversations to bring closure, so I've been able to reach a lot of people after I did my healing journey to help it so they don't, so they have peace. Right. So they have peace. So, right. But that, I thought about that experience, and I kept it really quiet, because I went on my own healing. I moved to Colorado for a while and lived up in the mountains, and I felt some shame around that because I'm like, what if people find out about this experience that I had? Will they still trust me to help them on their journey? I'm in this realm of, hypnotherapy and everything. And I was like, I think it's better to share this with people and be honest about it. And to also show that was a year ago, almost exactly a year ago. And I'm here now, and you can't overcome it. You can go from, this place where it feels like an all-time low to coming back to really being excited to live and having, a great purpose and living every day happy to just wake up and open your eyes. Right. Yeah.
And I think people are gonna actually be glad to hear that from you, like rather than judge you, because I don't think people are holding us to some sort of superhuman standard. It's way better to have that vulnerability and have I don't know, just those real human moments. Yeah. You know what I mean?
I think so too. But
because then you go, oh, okay, she does too. And maybe she knows how to cope with it better because of that.
Yeah, because I think a lot of times is, being a healer, hypnotherapist, shamanic work, everything I do, often people will think that, they're on this holy pedestal, right? And I'm like,
I know.
I like that I'm like, Buddha, and I don't ever have a drink of mezcal, or if I don't ever like, fall into places myself. But it's like, no, we kind of know darkness in a deeper way often, and that was my dark night of the soul. That was, really me breaking. But then
you're more open to it, maybe, you know, like we're more open to it and more willing to just be like, all right, fine, this is coming up.
Yeah.
So what am I supposed to do? And what am I supposed to learn?
Yeah, exactly. And then it's kind of like that breaking. And one of the quotes that really got me through the hardest moments, and I wrote it down and put it on my mirror, when I got to Colorado, was the very moment we think life is breaking us past recognition could actually be the moment that life is breaking us open to our truth.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. And that quote got me through. I just had to look at it. You know how there's something you can just look at and go, okay, so I
need it all the time. I have to look at it.
Yeah. So I kept saying, okay, what am I being broken open to? What am I being broken open to? And it took me a minute to really get to the place where I was like, I need to start talking to someone, because I really like to self-heal I'll drop myself into self-hypnosis, and I'll connect to my guides, and I'll do all this stuff myself. Right. But it took me a moment to actually go, okay, I need someone, someone that I could talk to. And so there was this man, and he's a grief recovery specialist, and he was amazing. But I wanted to talk to someone who had been through it, lived through it, so I knew how to get through the stages, Yeah. And this man...
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
This is really kind of a hard question, but did you ever actually like see her body?
I didn't. And that's something that I was, I didn't know if I wanted to or not for a moment, but it was very interesting because right when she passed away, 3 days later, the lockdown happened. So it's like
that's right.
She died, and then the whole world went into, basically, it felt like mourning to me. I'm like, so my sister died, now the whole world is shutting down.
This is I'm clearly dreaming life. Everything is
I'm like,
this is the Matrix. Nothing exists.
I was like,
it's pretty weird.
Everything crumbled in my life at once.
I ask because there's such a surreal nature to it,
Yes.
and like I took a class in college, which was like the best class I took. It was called Death in America.
Yeah.
And we learned a lot about like our own processes of death in this country and other countries, and how their grieving processes it's more real because they're actually around the body and stuff. And that's why we do open casket too, to process it more for ourselves. Yeah. And so my friend Yates, my close friend, and my drummer, Yates, he died suddenly in December. And it's still almost like it's not really real to me.
Yeah.
Like there's a very surreal quality. And that's why I asked, you were working with this grief recovery person. And I'm sure you were just experiencing it still on a surreal level if you hadn't. Even when we do have a tangible, it's still surreal.
Oh, yeah.
But death is surreal in the whole way of like, how are they just gone? Like, sometimes I just sit around and I go, he's just gone. He's like not here.
I know. And I communicate with the other realms, and I do it. And so, but for me, I know very much, there's much more to this. And I believe very much in reincarnation. And one book I will recommend to everybody is The Journey of the Souls.
I have that on my Audible too. Like this year I've been recommended it like 3 or 4 times just in the last couple of months.
I actually ordered a copy for you and Justin.
You did?
Yeah, because I was being called to it, so it makes sense.
Wow, thank you.
But I didn't see her body, and I thought about it, and I basically.
But you kind of couldn't. I mean,
no, I was in Texas.
Where was she?
In Washington State,
okay.
And so, she, it was a car accident, but. I talk to in this process, we try to make sense of the nonsensible. You know what I mean? We try to make sense of the tragedies, and
our brains like search for a way.
Yeah, and especially as like moms, right? We're like, for who is there someone responsible for this? We go through all the things, and
I can't even think about it.
No, and I, talked to the detective, and the first on the scene, police officers, and this woman, officer called me, the next day after she had passed away, and she said, it was a private number, and I answered it, and she said, I thought about if I should call you or not, but I saw you on your sister's Facebook, and I was so taken by your sister that some part of me knew I needed to reach out to you.
Wow.
And so it was really interesting. And she said, I got there, it was a cloudy morning, and I found, sorry, I'm choking up a little bit.
It's okay.
But I found her body there. And she said that she looked like an angel, that she was in one, she was completely together still, which, but that she had, had gone out the night before. So like her makeup was perfect. She said she was laying there, somehow she, obviously there was a, head injury, but she was beautiful and looked almost like perfectly laying on her back somehow. I mean, and it was, for me, that was enough for me to hear that, which I don't know if that makes sense, but it was like just to hear that she, and her soul wasn't there anymore,
No.
So it was just that body, the body was there. Her spirit had already left. And I know how that works. And so my aunt there, basically helped me long distance, to go with her and to bring her, to where she needed to go. So I just wanted to make sure though that her physical body was protected in the process of cremation and everything, which we had both agreed to a long time ago that we wanted to do that. So she wanted to be in Hawaii if, she passed away, in the ocean, and I wanted to be in Africa. And, we would joke about it. Right. But, like, well, you're going to have to bring me to Africa because you're going to way outlive me. I mean, we never, ever want to imagine to be on this earth without our kids. Right. So for me, the physical part was she is gone. I have to come to terms with that. Her soul, now it's working with her soul. And that was another form of love, because I know very much so if we're pulling at their spirit, if there's a lot of untied things here on the earth, it makes it harder for them to go to the next level. And so then it got into a whole other, aspect of her boyfriend, her friends, all my other family, and needing to tie up loose ends as much as I could for Jenny.
Wow.
Yeah. And so it instantly went into that, because I love her so much that I didn't want her soul to be trapped here. I didn't want her to feel pulled here, that there was unfinished.
You think souls get trapped here?
They can be pulled here if there's a lot of pulling. And this book actually kind of gets into all of that, which is really interesting. Just if there's unfinished stuff, it can make it harder for that process for the soul to kind of go to that beautiful next journey. Yeah. Reincarnation. I believe very much in reincarnation. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So you started talking to the grief counselor and, what did that lead you to, like, grief wise? Like, what did you develop some new tools, or did you develop some ways of dealing with this that surprised you?
Yeah. Well, so this man, his name was Terry Stout. And basically his story was his daughter ended up dying in a very tragic way. She was the love of his life, and she ended up falling from a balcony and
oh my God,
hit her head. And anyways, she went to a coma, and this whole process. And then he had to be there, and when she, life support and everything. And it really, broke him on a deep level. And he was already a psychologist and did all this work. And so he ended up going to work with the Inca elders, in Peru. He ended up going on this journey and this deep kind of healing journey. And so he learned there, a whole different process, kind of, working the Inca wheel. And, it's kind of this journey of every direction is a different level of kind of consciousness until you get to like freedom, where it's really beautiful, where you're basically living lucid kind of dream life. Right. And so he was really helpful, for me, and, to have someone who had walked through it, which,
for sure,
which now I'm not for a lot of people, because I've walked through it, because I went to the breaking and to, really get back from that. And he kept saying to me, and he was really great, because I need someone who's kind of tough on me, because I can kind of be a little hard sometimes, where I'm just like, because he would give me homework and all these things. And he would say, you need to drop completely out of your head and be fully into your heart. He kept saying, out of your head into your heart, because one week I'd be fine. The next week I'd be struggling. And I remember one conversation, I was like, she was my purpose. How do I be on this earth without her? She was my purpose. I don't see meaning here. I don't get it. Like everything I did for her. Why? It doesn't make sense. And he would say these things to me that really helped me question my own thoughts, which I think is really helpful for me. And he said, what if your purpose was, Jenny, for the first 33 years of your life? And he said, just what if? He goes, just hear me out here. He had a great way of talking to me.
Yeah.
And he goes, and what I say might just be bullshit, but just hear me out, know, and
just entertain it for a moment.
You got to love people who know how to reach you, right? When he said, but what if your purpose now is to find your purpose? Mm-hmm. And he kept saying, what are you being broken open into? It's going to be something on the other side of this. And I kept trying to kind of figure that out. The only thing that made sense to me was to help other people get through it. Yeah. That's the only thing that really makes sense to it. And you have to focus on a purpose after, when you're in that grief. You have to kind of get your feet on the ground and have something to focus on. And the purpose was to help others to move through it. That ended up being what I focused on. And
well, yeah, because there's no way to understand it. I'm thinking specifically of, my friend who died, his wife, and I've talked to her and she's just like, why? Like there, and we don't get those answers. We just have to, there's like this huge element of trust in there that's so hard to hold on to.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's no explanation for it that really makes sense.
No.
And
there's not going to be.
No, but I really do believe that.
At least not now.
Yeah. We find the answers on the other side, and I do believe.
Or you progress through life and then suddenly you look back and go, oh my gosh, that led me to break open in this way.
Yeah.
And to help all these other people. And now I understand.
Yeah.
But boy, that takes a long time.
It does take a long time. It does. And with grief, everybody has a different process. And for me, the dropping, completely out of your head and into your heart. And that was kind of like an Inca, elders, like the wisdom. That. Yeah. And he kept looking at me and he said, how much have you been in your head and how much have you been in your heart this week? And I was like, I swear to you, I've been good. I've been dropping fully into my heart. And he's like, no, you haven't. He goes, you're still thinking, you're still ruminating. He's like, you're still thinking, like what if? Because the process of grief is so tricky, right? And everybody has their own timeline. But it's like a passageway, it's, and it can be, really stormy or kind of like, kind of a little easier to move through.
Yeah.
But when it gets stuck, I guess it's like when grief gets stuck. I know we talked a little bit about this when we were able to reunite. But it's guilt. Guilt and shame is where grief gets stuck. And so a lot of the times when
I'm what if I'd done X or what if I'd done, I was with both my parents when they died. I don't know if you know that.
I was with my dad.
Yeah. And so, my dad was like, my dad went fast when he went and, which was good. But the hospice had come and there was a hospital bed in the living room. And my sister and I happened to be there that day, both of us. And we were just kind of staying there because we knew he was probably going to pass really soon. And he was on oxygen. So he had at that point, he had the little things in his nose. And she was in the kitchen and I was standing next to him. And I had just adjusted those things in his nose to make sure his oxygen was getting in his nose. And looked up at her and she was talking about whatever she was going to make or something in the kitchen. And I looked back down and he had died. And I knew, when someone's dead.
Yeah.
There's a very sunken look. And his oxygen thing was out of his nose. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, I killed my dad. Fuck. And, I just felt so guilty. So weeks later, I tell my sister, I'm like, I have to tell you something. And I'm like, I must have done something wrong or hit it. I don't know, and the oxygen came out of his nose and, I think I'm responsible. And she was like, Amy, he was going to die. He who knows what happened? You are not responsible for that. But just when you were talking about it, it came up again and I was like, what if? But I mean, he was going to die, but I felt, I still have this guilt. I fucked up. I should have just been watching it,
What if I was holding that in there and well,
anyway,
it was his time.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I know it was. And she talked to me, off the ledge about it too, because I was still holding on to that even over the weeks. And I was like, I'm going to have to tell her.
Yeah.
And I did tell her. And of course she was like, no way. no way. You know, and I know if the situation were reversed, I would say that to her. I would be like, come on, no way.
Yeah.
You know,
because that's real. That's realistic. But our brain ruminates on that.
Oh my God. Yes.
And that's part of like the denial and the shock and the guilt and the shame. So
yeah. Like I feel weird even just saying that on the podcast. Like, oh God, now people are going to judge me.
But
and be
isn't
like,
it good though? I mean, it's good. And because how many people have one of those memories and one of those thoughts with someone who's passed away, and for them to hear people talk about it in a very
like I could have, I would have, should have.
Yeah.
What if?
Yeah. Like I thought, she was getting ready to come down, to Texas, and, we were getting a plane ticket and all these things. But she was going through some emotional turmoil with a guy that she had been dating. And I knew she wasn't in a great mental spot, but I didn't know, exactly, what it was, but I was just like trying to be there for her, via the phone and talking to her every day and everything. And, I love you so much, whatever you need, I'm here. Like, let's get you on the plane. But part of me is like, what if I just got on a plane and went up to her? What if I had done, what if, right?
Oh.
So what if I, what if I had done that? And so then I'm like,
what if I paid closer attention and then been there for her and been out with her that night and blah, blah, blah.
Exactly. And, if I had been living with her, could I have gotten the keys out of her hands, before she got in that car? And so my mind kept ruminating over this and over this and over this. And I was just.
And those are the times when you were in your head, not your heart.
Yeah.
Like he was saying.
Yeah. That was my head and not in my heart. And, I had to really look at that, and I had to really forgive myself. I had to forgive myself. I had to first, it was, I know it's all, I believe it's pre-designed, in the stars, whatever you want to call it. And for whatever reason, it was her time to go, whatever, for a reason, her soul was, being called elsewhere. But the guilt and the shame is where it gets stuck. And that's where people, I think, can be caught in grief for 5, 10, 15 years in the same place where they're alive, but they're not living because of the grief has really taken them over. And so dropping fully into your heart, out of your head and into your heart is a hard thing to do. It is.
It sounds easy, but no, I know. I try to do it every day.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And
I've been caught in my head just this morning, Marina.
Yeah. Well, we all do. And I was like, so I started negotiating with grief. I'm kind of a funny human.
That's part of Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's 5 steps of grieving: denial, anger, bargaining, acceptance, depression, then acceptance. But she says they all get mixed up in there.
It's like
that bargaining, it's
like a little wire is going and you're up and down.
Yeah. So what was yours?
Well, mine, when I was dropping, into my heart and I would kind of be in this place where I was like, okay, well, I'm going to just let grief fuck me up for 3 days. Okay. Grief, you can just knock me down for 3 days and I'm just going to really be completely in my heart, cry.
Just wallow in it.
Right. Do whatever, wallow in it. But then after those 3 days, I need to get up and start doing some life. It was interesting because I really kind of, I wrote a poem about it. It was kind of like the waves of grief, where it's a new reality when your heart is broken in that way and where you're going through all these things where, I kind of compared it to, walking on a beach and in the sense of you're walking along life and this wave, of grief hits you and it knocks you on your ass and you're kind of being pulled under in the ocean and being tousled around and just this turmoil, inner turmoil and pain. And then you get spit up on the beach. And then you get up and you're kind of tired, but you dust yourself off and keep walking. And those waves of grief hit you and kind of knock you down and pull you in. But the waves got less and less. And that was what gave me hope through it.
There's a metaphor. Have you heard that this woman wrote? And it's about a ball in a box and that and grief is the ball in the box, and in the box there's a button on one side of the box, and when it first happens, the ball's really big, and it just hits the button just over and over, just like you're saying with the waves.
Yeah.
And over time, the ball shrinks, and it doesn't hit the button as often. But when it does hit the button, it still hits the button.
It's still
full experience. It's not like you hit the button less.
Yeah.
It still hits it. And so that's the same thing with the waves. Maybe the waves, have calmed down a little bit, but when you get one, you get one.
Yeah. And it knocks you on your ass, right?
And
it's exhausting too. You're exhausted from it. It's just, and you're trying to just get your life back together, right?
Yeah.
But it's a new normal. You can't go back to who you were, after this. You have to kind of create a new reality, a new normal, a new purpose, a new life. And I think the sooner that you really start to focus on that there is something on the other side of this, and what you can focus on, it makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah.
You have something to focus on. But yeah, working with him was extremely helpful for me, and surrendering to it, giving yourself the process. And it's been a year now since this happened. And I can say that I'm where I am now in my process with this grief, where I'm able to talk, which I'm actually super surprised that I'm able to talk about this without bawling my eyes out, which I'm
you're doing great.
Crying is amazing. I always my clients will say, I'm sorry for crying. I'm like, no, never apologize to me for crying, because repressed tears become illness in the body. So I'm always like, look at the wastebasket after a full day of clients, and it's like all these tissues, and I'm like, success, this is good. But I'm like actually kind of amazed that I'm not, snotty, bawling my eyes out. I was gonna put fake eyelashes on today. I was like, no, I'm gonna end up like Britney Spears in that interview. I'm gonna be like, no. But I am at this place now because I surrendered to grief, and I really dropped into my heart, and I really felt it. And I really let myself get fucked up by it for a while, and fully felt it. And I'm glad that I have a beautiful community, where people held space for me to be.
Well, I think there's a resistance, and people want to be strong and show that, portray that.
Tattoo. Be strong.
Yeah. And people want to be strong, but there's that strength and vulnerability thing. And we've been talking about it, from a personal standpoint, but there's also the guilt of did I do enough for you? No. And I feel bad about that. Or did I do enough for Helen, Yates's wife, my friend that I've been talking about? No, but it's kind of almost a two-way thing. It's okay. Reach out when you can. And I think people a lot of times don't know what to do. And so it holds them back.
Yeah, it's hard. How do you know what to say when someone is shattered? You don't know what to say.
Until you say, I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
That's what I do. And I tried to be more conscious about it, especially since taking that class in college. It just it taught us a lot about what not to say and what can hurt. And I know that you have a lot of thoughts on that and the right ways to reach out. But also, on the flip side of that is that vulnerability of being able to say, I'm not strong right now. Grief is overtaking me right now. Yeah. And I need someone. And that's okay too,
Yeah.
And allowing yourself to do that. Or if you're on the other side, allowing yourself to just reach out now instead of being like, no, I've fucked it up now. It's too much time's gone by. Because I kept saying I was going to get together with her and we couldn't quite make it work. And then the other day I realized, oh my God, I was supposed to text her this week and I didn't, and now I feel bad. And even though I think of him all the time, anyway.
Yeah. It's hard though, because it also really makes it real. Too. I think, you were close to him as well.
I haven't taken his name off my speed dial yet, it's just still sitting there.
Oh, and there's times when something happens and you still go to call that person.
Yeah.
And it's like, but, I had a few people, say to me, I wanted to reach out to you. I wanted to, but, talking to you made it too real. I relate you so much to Jenny and, it's too real. Even some family members. And I'm like, it's okay. I get it. But I think, for me, I had one of my best friends, Carrie, she's just like one of those down homies, she's just like the homie. She lives in LA. She got on a plane, she showed up at my door. She just showed up instantly the next day. And she was just there. And I remember laying in the bathtub and she was washing my hair, and she was just like, I'm here, and we don't know what to say. I don't, what do you say? You can't comfort someone, but I think sometimes just letting them know,
you're there.
I'm here. Or, and that was for me, really, I think back to that and I'm like, wow, she got on a plane. You know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? But again, we just don't know what to do. And we just learn. We learn with all this, right? How it works and whatnot. But maybe now that some time has passed with this loss, maybe you two now can get together and do something that maybe he would have loved, something to honor him together because you were both close, possibly. Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like the grief process too. memories, right? The memories, they kind of would flash to me, like I would dream and they'd flash to me like on a TV screen of all of our memories together. I would wake up in the middle of the night, like screaming, like, oof, like it was too much to look at. I wanted to not think about it. I didn't want to look at those beautiful memories. But now, a year into it, those memories have become beautiful gifts, like where I can smile at them now. But at first you can't look at them. Right.
Right.
But that's part of the healing process when the gifts of grief, I call it, where they become these beautiful, almost little, I kind of do in hypnosis, a visualization or little boxes, if you open up these memories and, these things, because the love doesn't die. The love doesn't die. The physical body goes, but the love doesn't. And you feel that still. And for me, I do communication with the other side, and I would do it often for my clients, to help them have closure and to, set the stage in hypnosis and bring in the spirit, if they want to communicate and have these conversations. And that's where they had the closure. And it's like, 'cause there's often grief to work through, any guilt or shame, ask them, is there anything that I could have done differently?
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful process too, of bringing peace somehow to it. 'Cause part of us knows, but we need that. Right.
Yeah,
and everybody has different belief systems, some people, might believe we just go and then there's nothing after this, but I know 180%, that there is. And now, I never wanted this to be the relationship with my sister. I got it with my dad after a while, after he passed away. And by the way, my dad passed and, I was there when he passed away, but I had to make the decision to take him off life support when I was 19 years old. And so, I had to work through the guilt and, this death thing, you get good at it after a while. You get good at the grief thing after a while, I think. But, I was like, you have to work through all of that in the sense of like, should I have done that? Whatever. Well, I know I did the right thing, but the communication is beautiful. So establishing the relationship with the other side, asking, for signs, asking for, anything, if they wish to, or, every Sunday I go and walk and somewhere beautiful in nature and talk to Jenny, and I say now she's everywhere, she's everywhere. She's in every beautiful thing that I see. She's in every flower and every sunset, so it's like this love is so expansive, it doesn't mean I don't miss her, sometimes and want to hold her hand, but it's different, It
is different. But that's the trick of getting healed through it and getting to that part where you can see love that way, because otherwise we can hold ourselves back from love, I think. If you haven't fully done the work around the grief, then you can just say, I'm not going to love fully because it hurts too much.
Yeah. You're so scared to experience that loss again. Right. Or
even just your mind takes you there, and you go, cause like what I'm going to say in my intro today, I'm going to record it after we're done, but I want to talk about loving fully and just the fear that I've felt around that. And, I think that grief can take us away from that as well. And just, you have these little things that pop in your head and you're like, the negative what ifs, like what if they're gone, or what if not only they leave me or they die or something terrible happens, and just, so then you're just like, I'll just keep my heart not quite all the way open.
Yeah. It's like armored heart syndrome. I call it. I like, I'm in hypnosis, all visualizations, right? So I'm always creating visualizations and different journeys. And I created this, which I'll send it to you when it's all done. But this Egyptian kind of journey where I take my client.
I'm in Egyptian.
Yeah, I know, right? We both have ties. I think we were talking about like the Hathors and everything. Yeah. But where I take, in hypnosis, my clients on this journey, backwards and under the pyramids to basically meet your ego, that's protecting your heart, and the ego isn't a bad thing, it's a part of us, but what happens is, the ego steps in to protect us.
We villainize it a lot.
Yeah. And I have a relationship with my ego. Like Good. I understand, I call her Karina. I have a name for my ego.
She has a name.
Yeah. That's Karina. It's my ego.
Karina and Marina.
Yeah. Well, Karina's job, is to come in and to protect my heart. Every time we get hurt, we speak a little less from our heart and more from our ego, right? Because it's protection. The ego's there to be like, be careful, what if, like, don't trust it, and the heart's like, oh, I want to love and I just want to, be open and all these things. But it just ego kind of steps in and soon, if we're not careful, it's like an armored heart, these layers and the layers. And so the ego is just there, basically communicating for us. And so our life is basically now being directed from the ego and not from our heart. And we all know when we speak from our heart, it leads us to a true place.
Yes.
And our purpose. The ego is protection. So we're only going to go to like a halfway place, right? From the ego, like a halfway love. So then we'll attract a lot of the emotionally unavailable men or whatever these things are.
Big time. I've been studying that for the last year and a half and really just trying to, and then like something came up with me and Justin the other day and I had to just sit with it. And I was like, where's this coming from? Where is it coming from? Where is it coming from? And really I had to just spend a few minutes and then I, really like looked into my heart to see where it was coming from. And I was like, okay, I got this now. And then when I voiced that to him, it totally made sense. He stepped up in the best way possible and and it moved forward in a positive way.
Yeah. And that's like cool because, vulnerability. And that's like having a great partner, you can tell him these things and he's going to meet you with not only like hearing you and like respecting it, but then, problem solving it with you and showing up for you and supporting you. But it's different, if we've had partners in the past that have, made us feel bad or weird for like voicing these things or, oh, you're insecure, whatever these things are.
Or we were just coming from a place that was, in our ego, in that blocked heart.
Yeah.
And,
it's protection.
Sometimes when I'm setting my intention, I'll just recognize that like, oh, I'm feeling resistance toward these things. And I'll just be like, okay, my intention is just to keep my heart open.
Yeah. But that's the hard thing in this world is to keep our heart open in a world where life happens. Yeah. The human experience is hard. We go through good things and we have a lot of pain that comes in. And so how do we stay open and keep our heart open, and grief is one of those challenges, that kind of will really challenge us to keep our heart open after we lose someone who means the whole world to us. How can you not get jaded in that, right? How can you not get jaded? Well, I was pretty jaded for a few months. I started seeing my clients again after, a couple months and I felt good enough to, I felt in my energy, but I wasn't fully in my heart space. Do you know what I mean? I wasn't fully back in my heart space. And I had to really, all right, if I want to guide anybody, I know I have to really be heart-centered to guide them properly. So I had to, and almost, kept me accountable.
It's such a push. Like I'll experience so much resistance over it.
Yeah.
I'm like, why am I doing? And God dang, it's like, it's a constant practice for me.
Yeah. And it's like, I'll talk to my ego sometimes and I'll say, thank you. Like, I understand, why you're doing this.
Thank you, Karina.
Yeah. Thanks, Karina. But like, I need you just to like sit down for a little bit. Like, just trust me. I'm going to be okay. Like, and Karina's like, are you sure? What happened last time you did this? This person broke your heart. And it's like, yeah, but I have to try it again. It's so funny. It's like negotiating with your ego.
Do you feel like since you've done that work that your heart can get broken? I mean, besides from Jenny, just like in love, I kind of feel like I've almost transcended that.
Yeah.
I don't want to put that out in the universe or anything, but I just feel like working on my own self-love, I'm like in the trust that I'm being led in the right way. I've really just like kept progressing in that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I do. I think that also, for me, when I went through the most major heartbreak of my life, nothing can really hurt me too bad anymore. Right. So it's an interesting thing because that was my worst fear, and my worst fear in the world was that anything would ever happen to Jenny. It really was. And when I raised her, I was pretty overprotective over her. I remember even her like wanting to go to like carnivals and things and, what rides are you going to go on? No, not that one. I was like, no. No.
You're like, I've seen those carnies.
And I had, the tracking device on her phone and everything. So I could know where she was at. And cause I was like mom, dad, and sister at once and working full time. But like, I was so overprotective. And that was another huge lesson that I learned in this is as much as we want to control something, our worst fear, as much as we want to control the outcome and do all we can, we can't. It's like holding on to sand. It slips through our hands the harder, that we try to hold on. And that was a huge lesson for me is every path is perfect. Even the path of someone leaving this earth is a perfect path. But I had to come to terms with that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can't control anything. So holding on tighter or, you know, it doesn't do anything
I know.
but stress us out and take us out of the moment and just enjoying life with this person. Right.
Yeah.
There's a lot of lessons in that. And that's, I think
it's a huge one.
Yeah. I think it gave me so much wisdom out of this, you know, so much, and things I thought that I knew, you know, it broke me up in a different way. But yeah, as far as like heartbreak now, you know, I don't think that much can really phase me. I think I've pretty much gone through the ringer.
I'm so scared to even say that out loud though, because then I'm like, then life is like, oh, really? Okay, let's just make sure. Let's try, you know.
I know.
Like, just kidding. Don't challenge that.
But isn't it an interesting thing though? Like if you think about your worst fear, like the thing that you don't want to happen, you know, and out of anything, and then it comes true. Well, then what do you have to fear?
Right. What
do you have to fear? And so it did make me fearless in a sense that's really, you know, beautiful. It could be dangerous if I was a dangerous, you know, human, if I was reckless, you know, but in the sense it just live, you know, so any fears I had of, you know, putting myself out there with things or, you know, being big or, you know, reaching the places I want to reach, that just went away. You know what?
And it's good exercise just in any way. Cause I've like in the last year or two, just done exercises around entertaining that where I'm like, I'm going to be broke and destitute and living on the street. Is that really true? Is that okay? My worst fear, like my, or not my worst fear, but if I have a fear of, you know, and not having any money.
Yeah.
Okay. What's that really going to look like? Like, let's be real about it, you know? And then you force yourself and you're like, okay, I'm probably not going to be living in a tent on the street. I have a lot of friends, you know, and like my kids are going to be okay.
It'd be a damn nice tent,
food in the pantry, you know, like, and I think, you know, if you go down it, your fear is, I was just reading something from Aubrey Marcus about this today. And he was saying like, usually it's maybe worse than you hoped, but better than you fear, you know? And like, so just, can you really go down that and say, what is really true in this situation? And really like, look at it more objectively rather than letting our fears run away with us.
Becoming the watcher of our thoughts is the goal, right?
Yeah. Because like, if you were looking at, okay, Jenny dying was my worst fear.
Yeah.
Then before she died, you would have been like, I'll die, you know, I guess probably. Yeah. You probably would have thought if she dies, I'll just die. I'll die.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you survive.
And if you had really entertained that, you would probably been like, okay, I may not die, you know, and you did, you survived.
Yeah. Yeah. Barely. Yeah.
Yes. But you did.
Yeah. And that was quite a journey, but yeah, such a learning there. So yeah, it's an interesting thing, right? So, but the grief process, and we were talking about kind of, you know, some things that I do, like the hypnosis and everything. And so I thought it'd be cool to just have people, you know, have a website now, and I have, you know, email or whatever, but I have a few different recordings around grief for different levels and different situations in grief, right? Because there's a lot. So I kind of wanted to offer, like, if anybody's struggling, you know, to email me, and I send free recordings out to people that are specifically in whatever place.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah. Cause like, I don't want to just like blanket one recording out, you know, but I want to help people, because just to get through the thick of it, you know what I mean? And it does get lighter, but when you're immersed in it, again, I, you know, visualizing like the ocean tossing your ass around in grief, and you're like getting banged up on the rocks of memories and what if, and you know what I mean? It's so much, you can't think clearly. So there's different recordings in this that I created throughout my grief process. Actually, like I would wake up from like these nightmares, you know, I've seen her in my dreams and whatnot. I'm like, okay, this is where I'm at in my process. I need to create something for people who are here. You know what I mean? This is where I'm at. So a lot of levels, but I want to send things out for free if there's anybody struggling, because I, you know, in, you know, my desperate attempt of finding Jenny, you know, I was actually speaking to the other day of like, that was like my darkest moment, but actually it was just a moment of like, where I was just, you know, I was at a place where didn't care either way, but it was really initial, just very much shock. Like now I love my life and I wouldn't go there, but you have to be able to reach people at that level, which is hard. And I think that I'm very good at doing that now because I was there.
And once you understand it and go through it, then you just have a whole new way of relating.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And helping.
a whole new way. But I just think, dropping from the head into the heart, that was like the thing that helped me the most.
Yeah.
And giving yourself time, giving yourself the time that you need. And everybody is on a different timeline. There's no right way to grieve. There's no, wrong way. So give people process, give them time. And it does feel, there's like PTSD that's wrapped around that too, in a sense, right? Well, you have these flashbacks, these things hit you, especially if it's like this traumatic thing, like the car accident. Well, I found myself in a car, driving, with my boyfriend, and I, was really on edge, and I was really like, okay, that energy of that car ahead of us, like, no, and I found myself and I was like, oh, I now have a little bit of fear here on the road because, with this accident, and I would just get flashes of things. So it hits, there's all these different layers to it, that make it tricky, but it is like PTSD.
It can hit you anytime.
Yeah.
I had that happen like a year ago or something, and I was driving. I had taken maybe 2 microdoses that day, and that was a little too much. But
it makes you a little sensitive.
I was a little emotional. Yeah, I have to really watch it with those. I can't really take them because my emotions are already up here, and then I take them and they're like, poof.
Me too.
But like I was just driving, and like I just heard one thing on a podcast, and she was just talking about her dad, and I just start crying, and I could feel my heart just like, And I was like, well, I guess there's something else there to grieve, so thanks for bringing it out.
Yeah.
But it just can appear anytime. And so I like that, you are helping people in that way. And I want to encourage people to not be scared of hypnotherapy, because I think the hypno part of it can sound a little scary to people sometimes, but it's really easy and lovely.
Yeah. It's like a guided, meditation, except for it's going deeper, it's going to a deeper, relaxed
it's like a deeper
place.
Guided meditation. Yeah.
It's
exactly what it is.
And a trance is like a deeply relaxed focus, so that it's just getting to the root. It's getting to the subconscious level of the mind, which is where you make the changes.
Yeah. That's where it happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you find any other, I think it was cool that, you were able to take those moments of like a deep grief and turn them into something, like alchemize them essentially.
Yeah, exactly.
Into something to help people. And I don't know, a lot of times people might be in that situation, not be able to do it.
Yeah.
But I think that's just a good way to look at it. Like, okay, is there a way that I can at least write this down and, remember it so I can be there for somebody else when they are.
Yeah, definitely. And it's just, everybody's in their different process, they really are. But I guess so many tools.
That's you read my mind. I was about to say, I guess what I'm getting at is what other tools.
Yeah, I got those out. And I think that different tools for the different stages of the grief, right? So shock, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance, and I have notes here. I was like,
good. Look at your notes.
I'm like, my little yellow notepad here. So there's different tools for each level.
Yeah.
I think, and that's where I'm more than happy to, share that and, email everybody. I'm doing lots of emails every day, email them tell me where you're at.
Yeah.
This is how I want to help you. But just to know you're going to get through it, you're going to get through it. And it doesn't feel like it for the first while. It just doesn't feel like it for the first while.
Depression too. It just feels so dark and like you're not ever going to come out of it.
Yeah. If you think about a grief being like a passageway, like a stormy passageway, it does lift, but there are ways to make it not so stormy. And that's where, the tools come in. That's where like hypnosis comes in. That's where, also whatever spiritual practice you have. I mean, for me, if I didn't have a spiritual practice, if I didn't have a knowing, that there was more than this, it would have been a lot harder. It would have been lot harder. So, what is it breaking you open into?
Yeah.
You have to kind of just reroute and reconfigure your whole reality, and your friend's wife now,
Helen.
Yeah. Do you chat at all, like, or touch base at all about how she's,
I'm going to today.
Yeah. And her process. Cause it's, it's everybody goes through their different process.
Oh, and she told me some of, her process, and it just broke my heart because I could just feel that, she was just coping the best she could.
Yeah.
In so many ways. And, I don't know what that's like in her shoes.
Yeah.
So you just find compassion.
Yeah.
And want to just be there.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's sometimes all you can do is just be there. Just go for a walk, bring food or, whatever feels good to that human. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, this is a beautiful discussion and I can't thank you enough because, especially right now with all that's going on in the world, I feel like, we've heard of people dying all over the place. And so I just think it's really useful and something that isn't discussed enough.
Yeah.
Death in general.
We're not
and grief process
taught how to grieve.
We're not.
None of us are getting out of this thing alive. We're all going to die. Truth is. So, but we're not taught how to grieve, and we have to honor our grief process, make it, a ritual, make it an honoring, for ourselves too, for that person and not try to rush it. You think about like, okay, well, someone that I love passed away. Well, you can have a week off work and then you're expected to just jump back into life and be normal, to go back. No, like you need much more time than that. And you have to give yourself grace. And then if you know someone who's going through it, you have to give them grace. Yeah. You have to give them space, grace. And
I feel like I didn't understand it a lot about losing your parents, until I lost my mom. And then suddenly I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Oh, like it sounded bad before. But then once I experienced it, I was like, well, this really sucks. And you just like then gain a new perspective once you're through it.
You do. And then that person would want you to keep living,
For sure.
And so sometimes we're beating ourselves up and punishing ourselves. And, I have the thought of why should I be here and not her? I wish there's some way I can go and like talk to death and be like, hey, you got the wrong one. Like
that's that bargaining.
Yeah. Bargaining. Like,
it is.
Take me instead, know, but that's not what it is. And, that person, that love, they're going to want you to keep living. They're not going to want you to stay stuck in this place of deep sadness forever and not living,
Right. I wouldn't want that.
No. Like when I die, I'm like, I hope everyone throws a really wonderful party. Like listen to like Duran Duran Come Undone.
Promise.
Like, like have like big shoulder pads on me, like I do want it to be like an exit celebration for me, but I'm not going anywhere anytime soon. I think I've got a lot to do here, but we also need to just rework our relationship with death.
The other day, my daughter said, my 15-year-old, she was like, hey, when I die, will you make a chair out of my bones? And I was
Jesus.
like, I was like, no, I absolutely cannot promise that. I know. Can you imagine? But like, anyway, even our children want us to go on living, like, make a chair out of my bones, have a good time, It's like, it's just really hard.
It's interesting now. It makes me really take time precious with people I love, in the sense of like, I'm so grateful now for time with people I love.
Yeah.
Like,
put your fucking phone down and be present.
Like when I got to see you after a year, like, I'm always excited to see you, but like, I just like, it's a different level of gratitude now and appreciating time with people and knowing how precious it is now in a different way. So you get this different perspective on the other side of this. And you don't ever stop missing that person. That never goes away. And there are times when it hits harder than others, so like the anniversary, I call them like emotional landmines, you know what I mean? Or maybe it's the place where you're walking on the beach, right? And there's just like a tsunami that hits you, you're fine for a while. So, but then it hits you again, right? So like birthdays,
Yeah, I know someone who calls it a tragiversary.
Yeah, anniversary of deaths. And so, and that goes into like tools, which again, I like to make sure I'm connecting with people, and hearing them and where they're at to make sure I'm helping them properly. But there's things like, emotional landmines. It's like, you need support and tools around those, don't be alone. Like I was alone, on like Thanksgiving, the first Thanksgiving without Jenny, I went to a deeply depressed place. Like I found myself feeling like I was back when it first happened. I was alone and I was just scared and I didn't want to be alone, but I didn't want to be around anybody, but my mind was just racing. Yeah. I went to a very, dark depression for like a week. And then I came out the other side of it, but different ways to support people, different, anniversaries showing up and how to show up for yourself on those landmarks. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different tools. And this could be like a 5-day talk about everything.
It really could, because we didn't even get into, now it came up, like my friends that have had in Moms Demand Action who've lost a child to gun violence, and talk about sudden. And then you're looking for justice on top of that. Maybe you have to go through the legal system.
Yes, exactly. The layers of everything is so different, because that's anger.
Can bring so much anger.
And for me, I
and justified anger.
Yes. When I heard, she passed away in a car accident, my mind went, and I started talking to the, detective and retracing the steps. I actually, I wrote a post on Facebook when I found out, and I go, I need to know everywhere she was that night.
I remember this.
I was like,
I remember your post.
And as a mom, like you could feel that energy, right? I was tracking everything. Like, was she drugged? Did someone upset her? I needed to know all the details to try to make sense of this. Right. And so, so much anger there. And then when I found out it was her who made the choice to get into her car after her friends had got her home safely, and she drove directly, into a pole. And, it was, I don't have anybody to get angry at. And then I felt anger at her. Yeah. And that's a whole other layer, right? When we believe that somebody that we love more than anything.
Oh, for sure.
Has done this to themselves. Sure. And that's, whether, with her, it was a suicide, or whether, whether, I don't know exactly.
Well, that suicide, that is a whole nother level.
But suicide is a whole nother level of different kind of grief that comes in it, because you feel the anger, you don't want to, but I had to be very.
No, but you're fucking pissed at them.
I was irate at her. Jenny, how could you do this? Like, no, like how in the world, like, I can't be angry at her, but I was. But then you feel mad at yourself, so there's all these layers that you have to work through.
It gets complicated.
Yeah. And you have to be really honest. So that's why, I work through all those emotions. We have to go through and look at all those emotions. We have to look at them, the anger, sadness, the different levels. There's so many layers to this.
And know that what you're feeling is normal and it's okay.
Yeah. Don't
allowing that part of it. Cause I think you can just beat yourself up like, I should be strong. I should be able to handle this.
Yeah. Yeah. And then for me, the feelings that I felt embarrassed of, I was embarrassed that I had anger, at her.
Yeah. Because you're not an angry person.
Yeah. And I'm like, how can I have anger at my sister I love more than anything on the planet who passed away? Well, I talked to like my grief recovery specialist, and he would pull things out of me. And he's like, are you angry at her? And I was like, no, I was like, no, not at all. He goes, he's like, you're angry at her, but this is someone who knows grief. He knew, how to work with it. I go, and then I started bawling my eyes and I'm like, how could she do this? All these things. And I go, and how could I feel this way about her? And he's like, what you're feeling is what you're feeling, Yeah. And he's like, you're out of your head and you're into your heart now. And that's where you have to be real.
Have those feelings.
Yeah. And to know that it is normal, that your process, it's a deeply disorienting thing. And you are broken at like a cellular level. So all of it's normal, but holding it in and not talking about it, it festers it in a weird way. And that's where, and not good.
Where does like self-love fall in the scope of this? Because I don't know, if you're really in tune with that self-love, are you letting those emotions out more freely and more easily, or where's that?
Well, yeah, definitely. And it's kind of, I think there's like an energy to all things, there's an energy to all things, but but grief.
I'm thrilled that the lights are working right now and you haven't like caused our electronics to malfunction.
But, grief is a big energy and there's a lot of pressure in grief, right? So it's like releasing that pressure, releasing it, whatever that looks like, honoring them, talking to someone, releasing that pressure, dropping into your heart, crying a ton. Like I cried buckets and buckets and buckets. I didn't know a human could cry so much, like really, like it's wild what your body goes through, and then the physical aspects of it too. And this is where like self-love comes in, so releasing the pressure, is a high form of self-love and grief, I think. And that looks like different things.
What does that look like?
Well, talk therapy, like hypnotherapy, whatever is honoring them, nature, whatever that looks like. But, when I was internalizing, and our other show that podcast we did together was Mind Body Connection.
Oh, yeah.
And where we talked about how things manifest in the body. Well, after a few months of Jenny passing away, my hair started to fall out in chunks. I would take a shower and chunks would fall out of my hair.
There's always somatic manifestations.
Yeah. My nails were brittle and breaking, like cracking down the middle, so physically the grief was manifesting in my body in weird ways where it almost felt like my body was dying. You know what I mean? It was weird. Like my skin was yellow, I wasn't talking to anybody then. I wasn't working through it. I was internalizing it and trying to survive it, but I wasn't doing the self-love. The highest form of self-love is acknowledging, I think at that point you need help. You need some help. And it was hard for me to do that. I really, I've been on my own since I was very young, and I've self-healed myself through so many things, but this is the one thing I couldn't. And it was a whole different level of vulnerability for me. But yeah, it manifests. And that's another thing that's hard for people too, is you do see it physically.
Yeah.
I remember just looking in the mirror, one day, and you don't care, the depression hits in and you're not caring about showering or whatever. And it was COVID, right? So I'm like, up in the middle of nowhere in the mountains. Right. I'm like, it doesn't fucking matter. Well, I started to do Zoom sessions, with clients all over the world. And I was like, cool, I'll just at least I could put mascara on, put my hair in a bun. Like I'd be putting my hair in a bun and like hair would fall out. And I'm like, it's okay. You know what I mean? No, it wasn't okay. No. I wasn't even caring about myself at that point, But you have to take care of yourself. You have to shower. You got to take a bath. You got to release the energy, but you don't care when you're in that deep place. You know what I mean? So
I'm always surprised when I'm feeling really bad and I'll be like, oh, I haven't showered in like 3 days or 2 days or whatever it is, And I'm like, no wonder I feel bad.
Yeah. Baths are my happy place. Like I make a lot of bath potions and everything for my clients, to release, to cleanse energy and everything. So I started
I love that.
Yeah. And I'm like, look in the mirror and I'm like, Marina, you look terrible. You know what I mean? I was just like, you got to wash your face. You got to use some lactic acid. Like, oh no. And it was interesting. Like looking in the mirror, I was just like, oh, you got to get your feet on the ground here. Yeah. So it's, if you don't practice self-love in this, it does manifest in things. And then, the denial and then coping. Well, a lot of times people turn to drugs and alcohol, to cope. And, I love mezcal from time to time. Well, when I wasn't processing, when I wasn't talking to someone, I was like, I'll just go get a mezcal or 2 or 3, after a full day. I found myself one week I had, drank 5 nights a week. It was actually a few weeks. I was like, I noticed, I looked back at my patterns and I was drinking way too much. Yeah. I wasn't feeling, I was connecting to something false. I was numbing myself, and that's not self-love. That's not self-love. So as much as, I need a drink, I've had a long day, I deserve a drink, that's fine, in capacity, but to drink, to not feel it, that's not, self-love. It's not, you're not going to process it. And you do have to feel it to heal it. There's no easy way out of grief. You've got to dive in. You got to go full into the heart. You've got to fully feel it, get fucked up from it, washed around in the ocean of it. And it gets lighter and lighter every time. And that's, I think, the self-love. Don't try to distract yourself, boys, drinking, whatever, on the other side of it, it's only going to be more extreme. Yeah. Work. So again, that's where it's kind of hard because a lot of times you don't have a lot of time to process grief. So that's where we have to really bring in those tools and, allow, whatever it is, the hypnosis, meditations, ritual,
And that can be one good thing maybe that came out of COVID is that like we've all gotten a lot more compassionate for one another. Definitely. And like, oh, you're not feeling well? Okay. Like, do what you need to do, or, or if you've lost someone, we're all, I don't know, we're just a more compassionate bunch, I feel like.
Yeah, definitely. So for me, it was, wild how it all happened because, Jenny passed away and then 3 days later, the whole world went into lockdown. Yeah. So I had, you felt like the whole, world was mourning with me almost. And I got to shut down. I was able to shut down. And being up in the mountains, and the trees was amazing too. But like, I was able to just completely not be functional, not have to worry about life things for a minute because no one was able to do life things. I didn't have to fake it and, pretend like my hair wasn't falling out and I didn't have, all this stuff going on and, wasn't completely exhausted every day. I
And everybody was way more like, how are you doing? To everybody, like, are you handling this okay? Because we're in a weird world right now.
Yeah, definitely. So
good. Well, I feel like we're probably wrapping up a little bit. So is there anything else you want to add before we go? And then also want to make sure that I will put it in the notes too, but that you share your email and your website so everybody can find these free resources.
I have a website now. Last time
Congrats.
I did.
I know. Yay.
Yeah. modernmindalchemy.com. My boyfriend made it for me. Woohoo.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. And that's
modernmindalchemy.com.
And it's alchemizing these things. And that's really the point of it, is to take these pains, take these lessons, and how we alchemize it, how we turn that energy into something different. But just, I guess, leave it with.
Ooh, I just thought of the title of our episode, How to Alchemize Grief, right?
Ooh,
yes.
Grief alchemy.
Grief alchemy.
Bam. Magic.
That's good. Can we trademark that real quick?
Yeah, let's get it. So I guess leave it with, you have to drop from your head into your heart. And as much as we don't want to feel it, you have to feel it. You have to surrender to it. And everyone's process is going to look different, how much time you have to do that. But I just really want to help people get through the rough bits of it, the rough parts of it, and to reach out to me, and, so I'll send you recordings, I'll send you things to listen to, whatever it is. There's this beautiful process, and I'm creating a grief recovery workshop, right? There's this process in Japan, where a ceramic breaks and they fill it with gold.
Wabi-sabi.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's beautiful. And you think about a broken heart, right? Almost like that ceramic. Well, we kind of have to pick up our pieces and we have to create a new mosaic of self. So I kind of like that visualization for people to think about. Yes, your heart might be broken in pieces on the floor right now, but we are going to pick it up together and we're going to glue it back together with gold, and we're going to create a new mosaic of you. You're not going to look like you did before, but there's beauty in that.
There is a lot of beauty in that. And I love wabi-sabi. Yeah.
Yeah. There's beauty. There is beauty in every breaking.
There is.
Yeah.
As hard as that is.
Yep.
Right. But that's healing. It's not curing. It's not going back to the way the vase was or whatever the unbroken was. It's heal. That's what healing is. Yeah. And the scars may show, but you're beautiful in a whole new way and you're whole in a whole new way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I can't thank you enough because this was a beautiful discussion and I feel like it's helpful to me and I hope it's helpful to a lot of people. I know it will be.
I hope so too. It's something we really need to talk about more openly.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Learning.
Because we all are going to do, if you haven't dealt with it yet, you will.
Yeah, you will, as much as we want to avoid it. I know I was holding my little 14-year-old dog the other night and I was just look, he has one little eye, little Oliver, and he has arthritis and everything. And I've been doing doggy aspirin and joint supplements and all this stuff. And I was looking at him in the eye and I'm like, I know you're not here forever, but give me a good 2 years. Give me 2 more years. I was like, we got a lot to do still. And he looks at me with this little eye, it's so funny. And I was like, cool, got it. And then when you go, let's have our souls meet back at this place. You got it? It's we don't want people to go, these things we love so much, but
I know
it happens. So enjoy that love, enjoy that love and live it, while you have it. And yeah.
Ah, so beautiful. Thank you, Marina. I love you so much.
I love you the most.
I love you the most. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you too.
All right. Huge thanks to Marina today for being here and sharing all her magic and light with us and all these tools to help us through the grieving process that we all have to deal with in some way, right? Even if you can apply these to, like we talked about in the beginning, right? To an old way of being or to a relationship or all the myriad of things that we grieve in this life as we transform and move into a new way of being and move into that new mosaic of self, which is a really cool way to put it. So don't forget that you can find her at, sorry, I just lost it right now. I got it though. Here it is at modernmindalchemy.com, or you can email her marinarenepirkle@gmail.com and she will give you those free resources, which I've done her sessions as we talked about, and they are so beautiful and so incredible. And you go really deep in a non-scary way. And then of course you can find her on Instagram at Modern Day Magic Woman. And just to recap a little bit of what we talked about at the beginning too, It's that getting out of your head and getting more into your heart. And that's what I'm talking about too with the falling asleep thing, where you just drop more into your heart and you give yourself that love that we deserve. We so deserve. I love you. Insert your name here. I mean, just repeat it to yourself. Just give it a shot. Just give it a try. Like do the little experiment, right? And just slow down your breath. You could even do it right now. You can even just say it right now. I'm listening. Say it out loud. There you go. I love you, Amy. I love you. And I love you. And just try repeating it to yourself and going easy on yourself, dropping into your heart, allowing yourself to feel whatever it is that we need to feel. Because that's where we start to alchemize. That's where we start to become whatever life is showing us that we have to become. And we aren't experiencing the resistances, or we experience them and we learn from them. And we go, I see you, resistance. Okay, fine. What am I resisting here? Where can I open up just a little bit further, even to my own self-love? Even if it's like my daughter and you look in the mirror and you're like, this is weird, but it matters and it makes a difference. And I make myself do it every day. I look in the mirror and I say, I love you, Amy, which, I would be embarrassed if someone watched me, but here I am talking about it. So don't forget that you can sign up for my newsletter and get free resources on my website. That's amyedwards.com. And I'd be honored if you sign up for the newsletter and share this episode with a friend if you feel called. Maybe you know somebody who's gone through something. I think we all do, especially right now. And, maybe it'll just be a reaching out that you can say, I'm thinking of you. I don't know the right thing to say, but I do know that grief is real. And maybe this will help you. Maybe this is just something. I just thought of you. So here's this. And rate, review, subscribe too. That really does make a difference. And I'm trying to get to, I think, 500 5-star reviews. So if you could add yours, I would be just so full of gratitude, so full. So I am full of gratitude anyway, though, that I'm here and that you're here and that we have this beautiful, amazing support staff here at Hot Pie and at this amazing network and all the good that they're putting out in the world, because it is full of really good people here. So thank you to them. Thank you to you. And I think that's all the business that I needed to share. Email me though. Email me if you have, self-love practices. I would love to hear them. Whatever your self-love practice is that I can learn from. Totally in for it, totally up for it. So write to me at amy@amyedwards.com. Love to hear from you. And I love you. And here's wishing you peace, health, wealth, love, joy, bliss, open-heartedness, and all the rest of it. Until next time. Thank you so much for listening. If you liked this show, please rate and review. It totally matters. And I encourage you to spread the love too and share this episode with a friend if you feel called. Find me and my newsletter sign up at amyedwards.com. And you can also connect with me on Instagram at realamyedwards or in Clubhouse at Amy Edwards, or write to me. It's amy@amyedwards.com.